Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into a really powerful story, one that's all about navigating absolute rock-bottom ruin. We're going to break down a narrative that literally strips everything away from its main character. It really forces us to look in the mirror and ask what actually remains when the entire material world goes up in smoke. All right, let's just get right into it. Take a look at this quote. When a man loses everything but keeps his faith, he still has everything. Now, this was an incredible dying sentiment from a father to his son, and it honestly serves as the foundational thesis for our entire analysis today. It's a pretty striking paradox, right? Like, how can you possibly have everything when your hands are completely empty? Well, to answer that, we need to trace the journey of a young farmer named Ethan, who unfortunately had to live out this exact quote the hard way. So let's start with section 1, a simple life of faith, finding wealth in what you cannot hold. Okay, so to really understand Ethan's incredible resilience later on, we first have to examine his emotional baseline before everything tragically fell apart. Notice his true net worth here. His early life, materially, it was poor, but emotionally and spiritually, he was incredibly wealthy. I mean, his assets weren't bank accounts or vast estates. His wealth was his incredibly wise father, Thomas. It was Bruno, their deeply loyal, protective dog who guarded their few chickens and walked with them to the market. They had this humble clay and straw house, a tiny cornfield, and a daily routine of shared evening prayer. You see, this was a life built entirely on connection and gratitude, not just accumulating stuff. And that brings us to this simple yet profound piece of daily wisdom from his dad. The life of a poor man is not easy, but if you work hard and trust in God, He will open your path. Thomas didn't sugarcoat their poverty, not at all, but he offered a really clear formula for navigating it: hard work and trust. Ethan deeply internalized this. He dreamed that maybe, just maybe, one day he might have good land so he could help others. And unknowingly, this very foundation, this immense internal wealth, was actually preparing him for the absolute horrors that were right around the corner. Which brings us to section 2, tragedy and testing faith, the compounding nature of loss. Now, this timeline brilliantly illustrates the compounding nature of his tragedy. Just look at how incredibly fast his life turned from peaceful to utterly devastating. First, out of nowhere, his father gets suddenly ill. His hands are shaking, his voice weakening. Ethan literally carries him home, but Thomas soon takes his final breath. Ethan buries his greatest source of wealth under their favorite resting tree. But wow, the universe wasn't finished. Shortly after that, a sudden fire strikes. It completely destroys their small farm and burns literally everything they own. The aftermath? Ethan and Bruno are forced to wander the earth with nothing but a stick and a small bag. I mean, it is a total, catastrophic collapse of his reality. Let's just pause here for a second and really absorb this. Ask yourselves, how would you react if you faced compounded tragedies exactly like Ethan did? When that fire took his home, Ethan finally broke down. He fell to his knees, crying out, begging to know why everything was being taken from him. But then, and this is so powerful, Bruno came over and just silently licked his hands. In that tiny, quiet moment, Ethan realized he wasn't completely alone. He found comfort in a dog's silent companionship after losing both a father and a home. It's just a profound testament to looking for the light when the darkness seems, absolute. This resilience pushes him forward into section 3, the cursed house, seeking refuge where others fear to tread. So completely stripped of his home and his family, Ethan's journey forces him to literally sleep under trees and drink from rivers. Eventually, he manages to find some day labor with a kind farmer named Pedro. But since he still has absolutely nowhere to live, he's forced to sleep in this abandoned house on the edge of town. And guys, his response to this is just profound. He prays, "Thank you, Lord, because even when I have nothing, I still have life and my faithful friend." Think about that. After everything he has lost, after being completely rejected by the village, his immediate response sitting in the dark of some abandoned house is pure, unadulterated gratitude. And this builds a really stark contrast between two very different mindsets. On one side, you've got the superstitious, fearful villagers. They're absolutely terrified of this house. They actually warn Ethan that it's cursed, haunted by a spirit guarding some hidden treasure. But then, on the other side, we have Ethan. He simply replies, "I don't need treasure, I only want peace." He views the abandoned house simply as a quiet place to finally rest. You see, his internal wealth makes him completely immune to the external allure of hidden gold. And that leads us right into the climax of our explainer. Section 4, confronting the shadow. The ultimate test of character. Because later that night in that old house, the air suddenly grows freezing cold. Bruno starts to growl, and Ethan comes face to face with a literal supernatural shadow. The spirit starts questioning Ethan, demanding to know if he is there to steal the treasure. Now, notice the stark difference here. Past visitors, they arrived with greed. They actively sought the gold and completely lacked any real faith. But Ethan, he arrived with a pure heart. Sure, he was trembling in fear, absolutely. But he answered honestly. He explained he was driven by absolute necessity after losing his dad and his home, seeking only a place to rest. His intentions were pure and honest, not at all opportunistic. And recognizing this incredible purity, the spirit reveals a profound truth. It tells Ethan that the real treasure isn't actually the physical gold itself, even though, yes, a chest of old coins and jewelry does actually materialize right then and there. But the true reward is the divine blessing awarded to those who hold onto their integrity when they have absolutely nothing left in total darkness. Ethan receives this physical treasure only because he had already mastered the spiritual one. Which brings us perfectly into our final section, true treasure and meaning, the manifestation of spiritual reward. So what happens next? Well, rather than hoarding the chest of coins and jewelry that the spirit left behind, Ethan immediately applies his good character to the real world. First, he rebuilt his father's house, fulfilling the exact promise he made at his father's grave. Second, he dedicated his new resources to helping the poor, finally realizing that dream he had back when he was just a humble farmer working those little cornfields. And third, he started a whole new life, always, and I mean always, keeping Bruno right by his side. He didn't let the sudden wealth change who he was. Instead, he used the wealth to honor his father's memory and uplift his entire community. Ethan's story really forces us to take a hard look in the mirror. So I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder after today's explainer. If tragedy stripped you of your material world tomorrow, if the fire took literally everything today, what internal, untouchable wealth would remain? What unseen treasure do you truly possess? Take some time to think about that. Thank you so much for joining me as we explored this incredible narrative. Keep building that internal wealth, and we'll see you next time.